my childhood sweetheart, Chloe, and I were lost in a deep French kiss on the sofa when our parents, who were supposed to be on a business trip, suddenly walked in. They watched us for a long time, all of them breaking into fond, knowing smiles. That very night, they decided we should get engaged. But I never expected that as soon as the engagement news spread, Chloe would become a completely different person. She stopped being intimate with me and no longer snuck into my room at night. After 3 years together, she inexplicably gave me the silent treatment for an entire year, ignoring all my messages. Finally, on my birthday, I sent her a new text. I've already spoken to your parents. There's no rush for our engagement. To my surprise, the woman who had ignored me for a year replied instantly, "Okay, I'll see you tomorrow." My heart turned completely cold. I immediately applied to my university for a 5-year advanced research program at the University of Queensland School of Biological Sciences in Australia, with no plans to return. The woman I had loved for 10 years, since we were kids, I was done with her. But that night, just after I submitted my application, I received a text from my frenemy, Leo Hayes. "I told you I'd have Chloe one day, and I really have you to thank for it. If you hadn't rushed into an engagement, I never would have had my chance." Leo had been in love with Chloe for years, but she only ever had eyes for me. We'd been rivals for as long as I could remember, but I always had the upper hand because she loved me. This time, however, I had lost. My thumb hovered over the screen, and I finally just typed back, "Well, congratulations." Then I put my phone down and ignored every message Leo sent after that. Chloe called the next day at noon. "Ethan, I've booked a table at that French place you love. I'm almost at the campus entrance now." Hearing her voice, I felt a wave of detachment as I mumbled an okay. By the time I got to the campus gate, Chloe's white Bentley was already waiting. I pulled open the passenger door and froze, my eyes stung by the sight of countless one-piece figurines. The cartoonish decorations clashed horribly with the car's understated, luxurious interior. Chloe said casually, "Oh, I forgot to mention, your friend Leo is an intern at my company. He suggested all these decorations. He said you love One Piece. So, do you like them?" I pressed my lips together and said flatly, "They're fine." Soon enough, Chloe and I would be nothing to each other, so I didn't care enough to figure out if she was lying. When we arrived at the restaurant, the host greeted us warmly. "Ms. Vance, will you and Mr. Hayes be taking your usual table?" Chloe's expression soured. She grabbed my hand and said sharply, "Look closely. This is my boyfriend, not my assistant." She glanced at me as she spoke, but seeing my calm expression, a flicker of unease crossed her face. "Ethan," I cut her off, "let's just go inside. I'm hungry." Chloe watched me walk ahead into the restaurant, then smiled and shook her head, telling herself she was just overthinking things. After we were seated, Chloe expertly ordered all my favorite dishes from memory, then excused herself to the restroom. Shortly after she left, her phone, lying on the table, lit up. I glanced over and saw the notification was from a contact named Leo. "Leo?" My heart clenched. I picked up her phone and typed in my own birthday, and it unlocked right to her iMessage screen. In the next second, my fingertips started to tremble. The message from Leo was a mirror selfie of him, almost completely naked. "You mentioned wanting to play a bondage game last time. Want to come over tonight?" I stared at the words, an uncontrollable tremor running through me. In all the years Chloe and I had been together, we had never taken that final step. "Ethan, you're the most precious person to me," she'd said. "I want to save my first time for after we're married." Out of respect for her, I had endured years of youthful passion, no matter how difficult it was. Now, all I could feel was a bitter, self-mocking pity. I forced myself to read it again and again, a kind of self-torture, until the sharp pain in my chest finally dulled into numbness. I turned off the screen and placed her phone back on the table exactly as it was. When Chloe returned, she saw me sitting there, lost in thought, and asked if something was wrong. I just shook my head slightly. She pushed the freshly delivered mango juice towards me. "Stop worrying about whatever's on your mind. Here, their mango juice is amazing, you should try it." I didn't touch it, saying quietly, "I'm allergic to mangoes." The color drained from Chloe's face instantly. Before she could say anything, I flagged down a waiter. "Excuse me, could I get a watermelon juice instead, please?" Chloe froze. She suddenly remembered the last time she'd forgotten one of my preferences. I had been furious, and it took her a full week of coaxing to win me over. This time, I just turned back to her, my face a mask of calm. "I was just looking at the menu. How about we try the escargot?" Suppressing her unease, Chloe said softly, "Ethan, tomorrow is the 16th anniversary of the day we met. Will you come with me to Disneyland?" I zoned out for a moment. 16 years. It was the vast majority of my entire life. After a brief pause, I met her gentle gaze and nodded. After dinner, Chloe drove me back to campus. Once I was back in my dorm room, I looked at all the things she had given me over the years, found a large black trash bag, and threw every single one of them inside. When I went downstairs to the dumpster, I was surprised to see Chloe still standing there. Our eyes met and she spoke first. "What's all that?" My voice was flat, without a trace of emotion. "Just some useless stuff." She held out her hand. "Here, let me throw it out for you." I looked at her and a small, humorless smile touched my lips. "Thanks, I'd appreciate that." It seemed fitting that she should be the one to throw away the gifts she'd given me. She tossed the bag into the dumpster, then wrapped her arms around mine, her voice turning playful. "Throw out whatever you don't want. My future husband deserves the best in the world. From now on, whatever you want, I'll buy it for you." I let out a short laugh. She was right, I didn't want any of it, but I wouldn't need her to buy me anything ever again. I didn't want to dwell on it, so I changed the subject. "Why are you still here?" Before Chloe could answer, a man's voice came from behind us. "Excuse me, are you Ms. Vance? Mr. Hayes asked me to deliver these clothes to you. They're all new." I glanced over and saw that the clear garment bag was filled with different kinds of prep school uniforms. A sharp pang went through me as a single thought surfaced in my mind. Roleplay. Chloe took the bag from the delivery guy, a flicker of heat in her eyes, before she turned to me and explained, "Leo and his sister are investing in some web series set in a high school. They need these for costumes." I looked at her and suddenly, the woman who had been by my side for 16 years felt like a complete stranger. I fought back a wave of nausea and just said, "I see." Chloe tossed the clothes into her car, then turned back to me. "Okay, I'm heading out. I'll pick you up tomorrow." Watching her drive away so eagerly, a sarcastic smile twisted my lips as I turned and walked back into the dorm. The next day was bright and sunny, and Chloe was waiting at the campus gate right on time. I pulled open the passenger door, only to find Leo sitting there, already in one of the school uniforms. With a glaring hickey on his neck, he waved at me. "Ethan." It took a lot of convincing, but I finally got Chloe to agree to let me tag along to Disneyland with you guys. Chloe's lips were pressed into a thin line, her face cold as she said in a demanding tone, "Who said you could sit in the front? That's Ethan's seat. Get in the back." A shadow crossed Leo's face as he pleaded, "Chloe, I get a little carsick." Chloe's expression hardened. Just then, I spoke up. "It's fine. I'll sit in the back." Chloe's eye twitched, but before she could protest, I had already opened the rear door and settled in. Her face was grim as she got in and started the car. I was watching the scenery fly by when Leo suddenly spoke to me from the front seat. "You know, Ethan, I used to be so jealous that you had a girlfriend as amazing as Chloe. But I'm not jealous anymore, because I've finally found someone who truly cares about me too." Sitting right behind the passenger seat, I had a clear view of Chloe's cold expression softening for just a fraction of a second. That fleeting tenderness was like a knife in my heart. After a moment, I managed a weak smile. "Well, let me be the first to wish you two all the best." Leo caught my calm gaze in the rearview mirror and clenched his jaw in frustration. He was about to say something else when Chloe cut in coolly, "Leo, I don't like people chattering next to me when I'm driving." Leo immediately softened, nodding. "Of course, Chloe. I'll be quiet." The car sped along, and before long we were at the entrance to Disneyland. As soon as she parked, Chloe took my hand and led me inside. After a few rides, the heavy weight in my chest began to lift, just a little. Chloe checked her phone and said playfully, "Ethan, let's get something to eat. We have to be ready for the fireworks show tonight." I didn't object, and Leo certainly wasn't going to. The three of us headed to the nearest restaurant, the Royal Banquet Hall. The restaurant was bustling, already more than half full. Chloe found a table by the window, pulling me down to sit beside her, while Leo naturally took the seat across from her. The moment he sat, Leo complained in a raspy voice, "My legs are killing me after all that walking." Chloe teased him, "Maybe you're just getting weak." Though her tone was joking, I could feel the palpable, intimate current flowing between them. I gave a silent, bitter laugh to myself and bent down to get my phone from my bag. But that one glance was enough to see the scene unfolding under the table. Chloe's alluring bare foot was gently rubbing against Leo's inner thigh, while his hand was caressing her toes, their movements both intimate and practiced. My breath hitched. Even though I already knew what was going on, seeing it with my own eyes was a vicious, gut-wrenching blow. As I sat back up, Chloe looked over at me, her smile impossibly gentle. "Ethan, you can't handle anything too spicy, so I'll have them hold the extra hot sauce on this dish." I took a deep breath, barely managing to keep my voice steady. "Whatever you think is best." A flicker of delight crossed Leo's face. "Ethan, if you're not up for more rides, I'm going to steal Chloe. I want to go on the go-karts." Chloe, standing beside me, didn't hesitate. You can find someone else to race with. I'm staying with Ethan. Leo shot her an annoyed look but walked off, and within moments, he'd found a cute girl to partner with. I watched Chloe's face darken and almost laughed. I said casually, "It's better you go with him than let him find some random girl. At least that way he won't get taken advantage of." Her expression tensed, but after only a few seconds, she dropped my hand and strode over to Leo. I felt the warmth in my palm vanish, and a bitter smile touched my lips. "Chloe, you can pretend to love me all you want, but you can't hide a heart that's already chosen Leo." At 8 o'clock sharp, Disneyland's famous fireworks show began. As the music swelled, brilliant fireworks exploded across the night sky, bathing the entire park in a dreamlike, multicolored glow. Chloe led me by the hand to a perfect viewing spot. Over the booming of the fireworks, I heard her whisper, "Ethan, I want to spend every year with you, forever." I froze, and before I could respond, she covered my eyes with her hand. "Ethan," she said, "they say the 10 seconds when the biggest firework bursts is the best time to make a wish." But through the gaps between her fingers, I saw her turn without hesitation, stand on her tiptoes, and kiss Leo, who was standing on her other side. The absurd, searing image sent a chill through my entire body. I squeezed my eyes shut and made my own wish. I wish that from this moment on, for all the years to come, I will never have anything to do with you again. The moment Chloe lowered her hand, I opened my eyes. She was beaming at me. "Babe, what did you wish for? Tell me." I saw the lipstick smudged at the corner of her mouth and was about to speak, but she shook her head. "Never mind, don't tell me. It won't come true if you say it out loud." She reached out and gently stroked my hair, her voice impossibly soft. "Whatever you wished for, I hope it comes true, and if fate doesn't grant it, I'll make it happen for you." I looked at her, a slow smile spreading across my face. "Really?" Chloe nodded emphatically. "I promise." Behind her, the sky exploded in a finale of color, and in that moment, her eyes reflected only me. I pushed down the acidic feeling rising in my throat and smiled at her. "Okay." Just then, Leo walked over. "I've got to take off. I'll leave you and Ethan to it." Chloe immediately turned to him, her brow furrowed. "Where are you going?" Leo held up his phone. "Some friends invited me out." Chloe's lips thinned, her voice turning cold. "Text me your location when you get there, and tell me who you're with." A pleased look flashed in Leo's eyes. "I know, Chloe." She watched him until he disappeared into the crowd before turning back to me, only to find me staring at her. She paused, then said quietly, "Leo's sister Leah is a good friend of mine. I'd feel responsible if anything happened to him while he's my intern." I stared at her face, suddenly remembering my freshman year of college. Chloe had just taken over the Vance Corporation and was working nonstop, yet she still made time to visit me on campus every single day. She looked completely out of place among the students in her power suits, but she'd hold my hand without a care in the world as we walked laps around the track. "I want everyone to see that you, Ethan Peterson, are mine," she'd said with a smile. "So no one else even thinks about trying." And she had succeeded. Everyone on campus knew I was taken. But now, the same woman could ignore me for a year and worry about another man's safety. I forced a smile, the taste of bitterness in my mouth. "I get it. The fireworks are over. Let's go home." On the way back to the car, Chloe remembered something. "Oh, Ethan, are you free this weekend? Leah is back from her studies abroad, and we're throwing a welcome home party for her. You should come with me." I looked down. Leah, Leo's older sister. She'd been studying overseas since high school, so I barely knew her. Chloe shook my arm playfully. "Ethan, you wouldn't make me go all by myself, would you?" I pulled my hand away. "Fine, just send me the address beforehand. I'll be there." Only then did she seem satisfied. She dropped me off at my dorm and left. The weekend arrived quickly. I followed the address Chloe sent me to a high-end private club, one of those exclusive places run by a few trust fund kids from our social circle. A staff member led me to the private room, but as I reached the door, I could hear the sounds of rowdy conversation from inside. "Chloe, you ignored Ethan for a year and he's not even mad? You got him back with just a few sweet words. No wonder you always said he's the only one you'd marry. In the future, you could probably bring another guy home to live with you, and Ethan would just obediently give up the master bedroom for them." Then I heard Chloe's voice, chiding them playfully. "Ethan is the man I'm going to marry. Even if I have my fun on the side, I'll never let him find out. Now shut your mouths, all of you, and don't you dare talk about him like that again." The room went quiet for a second, then someone asked cautiously, "Chloe, you're pregnant with Leo's baby. What are you going to do? A baby?" The words hit me like a physical blow, and my mind reeled in disbelief. Chloe's voice followed, her tone shifting from playful to sharp and annoyed. Are you all just going to gossip about me all night? My hand on the doorknob felt like ice. Just then, a voice came from behind me. Why aren't you going in? I spun around to see a sharp, beautiful face, her upturned eyes glinting with amusement. After a moment of silence, I managed to speak. Ms. Hayes, welcome back. Leah raised an eyebrow. I didn't expect you to be the first person to welcome me home. I forced a tight smile just as the door behind me swung open. A soft hand slipped around my waist, and Chloe's voice was in my ear. Babe, when did you get here? Why didn't you call me? I shifted uncomfortably. I was just about to come in when I ran into Ms. Hayes. Leah smiled coolly. Chloe, long time no see. Still can't bear to let Ethan out of your sight, I see. Chloe shot her a glare. Leah, he's going to be my husband. Why would I ever let him go? Hearing her declare her ownership of me so possessively, I felt none of the old sweetness, only a hollow ache. I pulled away from her arm, walked into the room, and took a seat. Since the party was for Leah, her arrival kicked things into full swing. Someone asked, Leah, I heard you were doing great overseas. What made you decide to come back so suddenly? Leah took a sip of her wine. My parents want me to come home and help find a suitable match for Leo. I felt Chloe stiffen beside me, and I noticed the eyes around the room subtly shift towards her. I scoffed internally as Chloe spoke up. It's the 21st century. Who still does arranged marriages? Leo is a great guy. He'll have no trouble finding a good woman on his own. A chorus of agreement went around the table. Leah simply scanned the room, smiled, and didn't say another word. When the party finally broke up, Chloe took my arm as we left the club. Just as Chloe reached for her car door, her phone rang. She glanced at the screen, and her expression shifted. She turned to me. Ethan, something's come up. Would you mind getting a ride home? I just looked at her and said, sure. Watching her get into her car and speed off without a second thought, a sarcastic smile touched my lips. There was a time when I was the most important person in her world. Now, all it took was one phone call from Leo to send her running. I was standing outside the club, not waiting for a car Chloe had supposedly called. When Leah pulled up, she rolled down her window. Ethan, I'll give you a ride back to campus. Seeing the rear door open automatically, I sighed and got in. As the car moved, the faint scent of sandalwood filled the air, making me feel drowsy. But then Leah, from the driver's seat, broke the silence. Ethan, you know about Chloe and Leo, don't you? I was wide awake in an instant. Leah glanced at me in the rearview mirror, a small smile on her face. It took my brother a long time to finally win Chloe over. And since he's always seen you as a rival, I'm sure he couldn't resist rubbing it in your face. I didn't understand her angle, so I just said coolly, and you think your brother wrecking someone's relationship is something to be proud of? The smile on Leah's face widened. A relationship that can be wrecked wasn't real in the first place. How about a deal? You let my brother have Chloe, and you and I get married. I'll make you the happiest man alive, and I can guarantee you'll be the only man for me. I'm a sure thing, Ethan. What I can offer you is far more than Chloe ever could. I took a deep breath and said simply, no, thank you. I leaned back against the seat and spoke earnestly. Anyone can look beautiful under a cherry blossom tree, and my love can be passionate for anyone who deserves it. Leah, no matter who I end up with, I can be the happiest man alive. My words hung in the air, and Leah's confident expression faltered for a moment, leaving her speechless. When the car stopped in front of my dorm, I got out and offered a polite but cold, thanks for the ride. Inside the car, Leah watched me walk away, a look of intense, intrigued amusement in her eyes. I didn't see Chloe for a whole week, but the texts from Leo were relentless. Ethan, Chloe's pregnant with my baby, and she's a nervous wreck. She says our baby is the most important thing in the world to her now. She's even letting me stay at the house you two were supposed to live in. Ethan, these are the pajamas Chloe bought for you. They're really comfortable. Ethan, Chloe's parents called to push the wedding, but she told them she needs more time. The explicit, taunting messages kept coming, turning my heart into a barren wasteland. Eventually, I could read them without feeling anything at all. Then, on the 8th day, a new text from Leo arrived. Ethan, you have the nerve to mess with my sister? I'm going to kill you. My brow twitched. Just then, my phone vibrated in my hand. It was Chloe. I answered instinctively, and her voice came through, cold and devoid of any emotion. I need to ask you something. Meet me at the campus entrance. Before I could say a word, she hung up. When I got to the gate, I saw Chloe standing there, radiating an icy anger. Before I could even process it, she grabbed my arm and pulled me into her car. The doors locked with a sharp click, followed immediately by her harsh interrogation. Why did Leah drive you home after the party? She demanded, her eyes fixed on me. You know the Hayes family was interested in a marriage alliance with our family. Did you even stop to consider my feelings? Looking into her cold, accusing eyes, I almost laughed at the absurdity of it all. I pulled my arm from her grasp. Chloe, are you actually accusing me of having some secret affair with Leah? My question made her pause. She instinctively reached for my hand again, her voice softening slightly. Ethan, don't say things like that just to make me angry. She ran a hand through her hair, agitated. After Leah dropped you off, she posted a picture of your back on Facebook, with a caption about it being the first time she'd ever dropped a guy off at his dorm. Now all of our friends are asking me what's going on. Her voice was laced with a sense of grievance. You're my boyfriend, my future husband. I don't want people getting the wrong idea. I already made Leah delete the post. Ethan, I will not tolerate you getting involved with any other woman. Her words of love felt like cheap, mass-produced goods, unable to stir even the slightest ripple in my heart. In fact, hearing them now just felt grating. Still, I nodded. It didn't matter. Soon, not just Leah, but Chloe herself would be completely out of my life. A satisfied smile finally appeared on her face. She started the car. There's a gala tonight. You're coming with me. She had always been imperious, and I had no energy left to argue. Chloe took me to get a new suit before we headed to the event. The moment we walked in, I saw Leo, impeccably dressed and surrounded by a crowd of admiring women. I watched as the smile on Chloe's face instantly vanished. I smiled and gently removed my hand from hers. Looks like your assistant is getting mobbed over there. You should probably go rescue him. Seeing how understanding I was, her tone softened. Okay, you wait here. I'll be right back. I watched her march towards Leo, her pace urgent, like someone rushing to reclaim a prized possession. I calmly looked away. I ended up waiting for 3 hours. I was getting tired, so I headed towards a quiet lounge area to rest. As I neared the door, I heard soft, panting sounds from within. Chloe, do you like the feel of the chains under my suit? My heart seized. Chloe's breathless moan came next. I love it. You have to wear them for me again. Be gentle. I'm carrying your baby. Remember? Listening to those sordid sounds, the last spark of light inside me died. I don't even remember how I got out of that ballroom. As the cold night air hit my face, I felt as if my heart had been ripped from my chest and shattered on the pavement. The next day, I woke up with a raging fever. I dragged myself to the hospital. While I was sitting in the waiting area, I heard Leo's voice from down the hall. I picked up your test results. The doctor said our baby is perfectly healthy, so you can stop worrying and focus on your meeting. I glanced over and was stung by the look of pure joy on his face. Seeing the lab report in his hand, I suddenly remembered Chloe's words to me. Ethan, after we get married, let's have a baby right away. Boy or girl, it doesn't matter. I'll give our child the best love in the world. The memory made me twist my lips into a sarcastic smile as I looked away. But just as I was leaving the pharmacy, I ran straight into Chloe. Our eyes met, and I saw a flicker of panic in hers. Ethan, what are you doing here? A second later, her gaze fell on the prescription bag in my hand. She grew anxious. What's wrong? Are you sick? In response, I took a deliberate step back. My movement made her flinch, and she looked up at me, hurt. Ethan, are you angry with me? Last night, after I made sure Leo got home okay, I got cornered by a business partner. You know Vance Corp is in a critical growth phase right now. I couldn't just walk away. Watching her rush to explain, a wave of sadness washed over me. When had lying become so easy for her? I cut her off quietly. Chloe, I don't feel well. I'm going home. Seeing me turn to leave, she grabbed my arm. You can't go home by yourself when you're this sick. Let me drive you. I hesitated for a second, then gave a single, indifferent nod. But I was wrong to think she was taking me back to my dorm. Instead, she drove to her private villa downtown. As I looked at the house that was supposed to be ours, designed from top to bottom according to my own preferences, Leo's text echoed in my mind. She's even letting me stay at the house you two were supposed to live in. Chloe, oblivious to my turmoil, led me inside. Ethan, you should just move in. You're going to be the master of this house eventually anyway, and this way I can take better care of you. She turned to me, her smile soft. The thought of coming home to you every day, that's all the happiness I need. I looked at her smiling face, and my heart went cold as stone. How could she say such nauseating things while carrying another man's child? I let out a self-deprecating laugh. Chloe, I said quietly, you can't make me happy. My voice was so low she didn't hear me. She led me to the sofa. You rest here. I'll go get you some water for your medicine. I watched her walk away, full of purpose, and felt nothing at all. I had 7 days until my flight to Australia. I decided to treat it as one last week together before severing our 16-year bond for good. During my stay at the villa, Chloe came home on time every evening, and the texts from Leo stopped. I enjoyed the rare peace and quiet, and took the opportunity to announce my study abroad plans in our family group chat. My father's reply was simple: "Ethan, your mother and I will support any decision you make, 100%. Reading his message, the dark cloud that had been hanging over me finally began to break apart. The day of my departure arrived in what felt like a blink of an eye. Chloe was up early and had made a full breakfast. She raised an eyebrow at me playfully. "So, how am I doing as a future wife?" I smiled faintly. "You're doing a great job." At least, she was very competent at pretending to love me. She smiled back, but just as she was about to speak, her phone rang. The call lasted only a few seconds, but when she hung up, her face was grim. "Leo's in the hospital. I have to go check on him." I watched her in silence. "Okay." She grabbed her coat, but paused at the door to look back at me, a sudden flicker of unease in her eyes. "Ethan, I'll be back really soon. You just wait for me here, okay?" I pressed my lips together, about to say something, but she had already turned and left without a moment's hesitation. I let out a small, humorless laugh. "Can't even wait a single second, can you?" I sat at the table for a long time before finally getting up, going to the office, and turning on the printer. With a low hum, it began spitting out copies of every single taunting text Leo had ever sent me. I took the pages and methodically taped them up, covering every wall in every room of the house. Just as I finished, a notification popped up on my phone. "Your flight to Brisbane, Queensland is now boarding. Please proceed to your gate." I looked around at the paper-covered walls, a quiet laugh escaping my lips. I took out my phone and sent one last text to Chloe. "Chloe, we're done." Attached to the message was the photo of her positive pregnancy test that Leo had so proudly sent me. I blocked her number, blocked her on every app, and then turned my phone off completely. I opened the front door and walked out into the sunshine, towards my new life. I never looked back. People who betray true love are eventually betrayed by it. I hope you live with that, Chloe. Around noon, the special ringtone Chloe had set just for me went off. She looked up from her computer, picked up her phone, and it unlocked with facial recognition. My text, sent just before my flight, was displayed prominently on her screen. "Chloe, we're done." Below it was the image of the lab report with her name clearly visible. Her heart plummeted. She immediately tried to call me, but the call wouldn't go through. She realized I had blocked her. Frantically, she tried a regular phone call, only to be met with the message that my phone was turned off. Without another thought, she grabbed her keys and drove to my parents' house, running into my mother just as she was heading out. Chloe rushed to block her path. "Mrs. Peterson, Ethan and I had a misunderstanding. Please, can you let me see him? I need to explain everything." My mother frowned at her. "Ethan is done with you, Chloe. Don't harass him. Just let it go and part ways gracefully." My mother tried to step around her, but Chloe blocked her again. "Please, Mrs. Peterson, I'm begging you. I have to see him." My mother's patience wore thin. "You can't. Ethan's already on a plane to Australia for his program. He obviously doesn't want to see you, so why are you still pushing? Out of respect for your parents, I've held my tongue, but you lost the right to be in our lives the day you humiliated him in front of both our families." Chloe's arms fell limply to her sides. "I'm sorry, but this time, there was no one there to tell her it was okay. No one was going to forgive her." When Chloe returned to her apartment in a daze, Leo was waiting for her with a home-cooked meal. He was as gentle and attentive as ever, and his presence made the apartment feel more like a home, just as it always did. But all Chloe felt was a deep, gnawing irritation. Leo greeted her with a smile. "Chloe, you're back. Come eat. I made your favorite sweet and sour ribs." "Didn't I tell you not to tell Ethan I was pregnant?" Leo froze for a second before stepping forward to gently embrace her. "I just love you so much." Chloe shoved him away, her eyes blazing with anger. "And I told you this was just a casual thing between us. The person I love is Ethan." The color drained from Leo's face. "Chloe," she frowned, placing a hand on her stomach. "I'm getting rid of this baby. I'm only ever going to marry Ethan, and he's the only one who will ever be the father of my children." Leo stared at her, shocked by her cruelty. Looking at the beautiful face that had once captivated him, he felt a surge of disbelief and rage. "Chloe, I'm telling you, Ethan already knew you were sleeping with me. He had already decided to leave you. He doesn't love you anymore. Maybe he never did." Chloe covered her ears and screamed, "Shut up! Ethan loves me. He could never stop loving me. None of this would have happened if you hadn't seduced me. But it doesn't matter. Ethan loves me. He can't live without me, and he will forgive me." Leo let out a bitter laugh. Forgive you? Forgive you for what? For all the times you were with me while you were ignoring him. Blinded by rage, Chloe slapped him hard across the face. Shut up. I'm getting an abortion tomorrow. You were just a fling, Leo. You mean nothing to me. The words were followed by the deafening slam of the front door. Leo slammed his fist on the table, staring at the closed door in despair. On the table, the sweet and sour ribs had grown cold. 5 years later, the moment I stepped out of the airport terminal in Chicago, the humid summer air wrapped around me. Through the sea of cars and people, I saw my mother and father across the street, waving enthusiastically. Ethan, you're thinner, were the first words out of my mother's mouth. I smiled and hugged her. I don't think so. My father, who had already grabbed my suitcase, studied my face for a moment and murmured, No, you are. I traveled to many places in my life, but this city was different. It held so many of my family's memories. A part of me had put down roots here, had blossomed here. In the car, my mother mentioned there was a reception that evening and asked if I wanted to go. I knew she wouldn't ask unless it was important, so despite the jet lag from the long flight, I agreed. Just as I said yes, my phone rang. It was Maya. Her warm, teasing voice filled my ear. Ethan, did you make it? I did. I'm with my parents now. Maya laughed softly. I'll be back in a month. I'll meet them properly then. I smiled, a genuine, happy smile. With my parents in the car, I kept the call short and hung up. My mother was smiling. So that was the famous Maya you've told us so much about? I nodded. She said she'll be back in a month. As soon as she is, I'll bring her home to meet you both. My mother didn't know Maya, but she could see the happiness on my face, and that was enough to give her a good impression. My father remained quiet, only reminding me of a few details about the reception that night. It had been so long since I'd attended an event like this that it wasn't until I stepped into the ballroom that evening that the reality of being home truly sank in. The moment I walked through the door, someone called my name. Looking around, I saw a room full of faces that were at once familiar and strange. I wasn't sure who was hosting, but it seemed like everyone who was anyone in our circle was there. I felt a bit stiff at first, but after exchanging a few pleasantries, I realized that even after 5 years away, navigating these events was second nature, as if I'd never left at all. It struck me then that 5 years is a long time, but in this circle where things change so quickly, it felt like nothing. I picked up a glass of champagne and listened to the buzz of conversation around me, my eyes drifting to a presentation scrolling on a large screen. Suddenly, I overheard someone say, Chloe Vance has been doing an incredible job running her family's company. My dad mentions her all the time. Hearing her name after so long sent a chill through me. The first 20 years of my life had been completely entangled with hers, like vines, but now we were on completely separate, foreign paths. I was so lost in thought that I didn't even hear the conversation shift to me until someone spoke my name. Ethan, I remember you and Chloe were practically engaged. Do you two still keep in touch? Startled, I quickly composed myself and smiled. No, I was pretty much off the grid for the last 5 years, focusing on my research. The man raised his glass to mine. 5 years. Man, time flies. I murmured in agreement. As the evening wore on, I glanced at him again and finally placed him. His name was Dylan Scott, and I remembered he was a friend of Leo's. I sighed, ready to make an excuse to leave, when I heard Dylan call out, Leo, over here. Now leaving would look far too obvious. Sure enough, the moment Leo walked over, his eyes landed directly on me. When did you get back? He didn't use my name, but I knew the question was for me. To avoid making a scene, I answered calmly, just today. Thankfully, Leo didn't press further. It's not like we were friends who could make small talk, but of course, some drunk guy nearby had to chime in. Hey, I remember 5 years ago, Leo, you became Chloe's personal assistant just to get with her. So, did it work? Did you get the girl? Others, sensing drama, chimed in, yeah, what happened? Leo and Dylan exchanged a quick look. That's all in the past, Leo said, trying to laugh it off and change the subject. So you didn't get her? That's a shame. I always thought you and Chloe made a great couple. The guy wouldn't let it go. Wait, wasn't she pregnant with your kid? Why didn't you two end up together? Did she get rid of it? None of this had anything to do with me anymore. I was worried that if this continued, I'd be dragged into it. I raised my glass. I see a friend over there. Excuse me. I used it as an excuse to walk away, thinking about how much some people love to gossip. I walked out onto the terrace for some air, and my eyes met hers completely by surprise. It was Chloe. Her beautiful eyes were like sharp blades, cutting through my composure and making my mind go blank for a second. I quickly recovered, sidestepping to walk past her. She seemed just as surprised, but she reached out and grabbed my wrist. Ethan, when did you get back? I pulled my arm free, answering coldly, today. She didn't let go, however, and instead her eyes scanned my face, taking me in. The years apart had changed me. My face had lost its boyishness, replaced by a more mature, composed look. I had a new kind of confidence now, a different kind of charm. I frowned. Can you let go of my arm? She reluctantly released me. Before she could even apologize, I was already walking away, practically fleeing as if she were the plague. Chloe watched me go, her chest rising and falling rapidly as the composure she'd been holding on to began to crumble. This time, she swore to herself she would not let me go. But I was nowhere near as calm as I looked. I had moved on from our past, but the memory of the pain she caused still lingered. After a while, I decided I'd spend enough time out there and headed back inside to make one final round before heading home. I wasn't paying attention, however, and ended up drinking more than I'd intended. Around 11, guests started to leave, many of them completely drunk and being helped out by their assistants. I wasn't that far gone, but I was definitely buzzed. I walked to the entrance and pulled out my phone to order a ride. My parents were still inside networking, so I'd left our driver for them. But the venue was in a remote area, and no drivers were accepting my request. Just as I was about to increase the fare, a sleek, understated Bentley pulled up in front of me. The back window rolled down, and I saw Chloe's face, half in shadow, half in light. I'll give you a ride. No thanks, I've got one coming. I refused immediately. But she didn't drive off. The car just sat there, waiting. I could hear more people coming out behind me, their voices getting louder. Not wanting to cause a scene, I canceled my ride and got into her car. Chloe didn't speak, just closed her eyes to rest. She must have been tired. If she wasn't going to talk, I certainly wasn't going to start. We drove in complete silence until the car pulled up in front of my parents' house. As I reached for the door handle, she finally spoke. Ethan, was it because of Leo that you left? I paused, halfway out the door, and settled back into my seat. Yes, but it was more than that. She lowered her gaze, not looking at me, her face unreadable. If I ignored the tension between us, the way she narrowed her eyes was still undeniably captivating. But looking at that familiar face stirred nothing in me anymore. We sat in silence for another minute. The alcohol was starting to make my head spin. I collected myself. I should go in. Thanks for the ride. Ethan, can we please start over? Our voices overlapped, completely out of sync yet perfectly clear. I looked up, surprised, and met her intense, pleading gaze. Ethan, she said, her voice thick with emotion. It's been 5 years, and I still only love you. I know I messed up back then, I admit it, but can you please give us one more chance? I can't live without you. I pressed my lips together and looked away. Still only loved me? Her love hadn't stopped her from abandoning me and sleeping with someone else. That kind of love was just disgusting to me. And did she really think of her affair as just messing up? She said it so casually. After 5 years, I couldn't comprehend how she had the audacity to ask me to start over. Chloe, I don't love you anymore, and I will never, ever get back together with you. A look of profound sadness, mingled with disbelief, filled her eyes. We sat in silence for another 2 minutes, the air thick with unspoken emotions. The alcohol was really hitting me now, and I knew I couldn't drag this out. I sighed. I really didn't want to make this any uglier than it already was. I'm going now. She stopped me one last time. If we can't be together, can you at least give me a chance to win you back? Unblock my number. My head was fuzzy from the drinks, and I decided it was easier to just agree. Fine. I got out of the car, feeling unsteady on my feet. A moment later, I felt her hand on my arm, steadying me. I'll walk you to the door. She had been in and out of my room since we were kids, and once we started dating, all boundaries disappeared. It was natural for her to say that. I frowned. That's not necessary. I pulled my arm away and quickly went inside. Even after 5 years apart, she still acted as if no boundaries existed between us. I collapsed onto my bed, my head throbbing, as the events of the night replayed endlessly in my mind. I wanted to shut it all out. I didn't unblock her number, not on my phone, not on any apps, and certainly not in my life. This was just a brief chance encounter. When the sun came up, she would go her way and I would go mine. We didn't belong in the same world anymore. After getting a full night's sleep, I changed into some casual clothes. I decided that before starting my new job, I'd take some time to reacquaint myself with the hometown I hadn't seen in 5 years. My intention was simply to walk down memory lane, but the problem was, my hometown, my childhood, my entire youth, it was all tied to Chloe. Looking back, the most fleeting, innocent, and beautiful years of my life had all revolved around her. Those years were like water under the bridge. impossible to escape, only to be remembered. I unlocked a bike share on the sidewalk and rode under the canopy of trees lining the street, heading back to my old alma mater. It was a huge, comprehensive K-12 magnet school. It was still during school hours, so the campus was quiet and serene. The security guard at the gate must have mistaken me for a teacher, because he didn't even give me a second glance. I walked in confidently, as if I belonged there. So much had changed in the years I'd been gone. Many of the buildings had been renovated. I took in the familiar yet new surroundings as I made my way straight to the faculty offices. The main reason for my visit was to see some of my old teachers. I spent some time catching up with my old homeroom teacher, who, true to form, eventually started asking the gossipy questions. "So, what's the story with you and Chloe? Are you two married yet?" "No," I replied. "We're not together anymore." I just smiled and looked down, meeting her surprised expression. It was true. If I was going to reminisce about my past, there was no way to avoid Chloe. She was an inescapable part of it, even though we hadn't even been in the same grade. After saying goodbye to my teacher, I climbed the stairs to the pedestrian bridge that overlooked the main quad. Just then, the bell rang, and energetic teenagers began pouring out of the buildings in small, laughing groups. The scene below was one of picturesque, almost unreal harmony. Watching from above, I felt a stir in my heart. I took a short video and sent it to Maya. I wanted to share this beautiful moment with her. She must have been on a break, because she replied almost instantly with a video message of her own. "Back at your old school?" Her gentle voice traveled from the other side of the world, yet it felt as if she were standing right beside me. The thought made my heart skip a beat. I smiled, feeling my ears grow warm. "Yeah, haven't been back in 5 years, so I thought I'd take a look around." "That's nice," Maya said. "Ethan, what were you like in high school?" A little quiet, I guess. Not very social." It had been a long time, and it was a pretty subjective question, so I answered with some hesitation. Maya laughed. "Really? Because I remember the first time I saw you, at that academic competition, you were quite the sharp debater." I knew exactly what she was talking about. My sophomore year, when I represented my school at a competition held at her university. The judges were clearly biased, and I had stood up and called them out on it. That was technically the first time we'd ever met. Of course, she was the only one who remembered it. I felt a little embarrassed and tried to explain. "Well, that's only because the judges from your university were being completely unfair. They were trying to give my award to someone else. Even a quiet guy will fight back when he's cornered." Her laughter grew. "Oh, you did more than fight back. You got revenge." My face was completely red by then. After that first encounter, the next time Maya and I saw each other was when I began my research program in Australia. The Maya I met then wasn't the calm, composed woman she was today, who always seemed to have everything under control. 5 years ago, Maya was wild and rebellious, a classic bad girl. I was the program's star student, and she was the rebellious daughter of our primary sponsor. In the beginning, we clashed constantly over the research. As the actual scientist, I didn't think an amateur like her had any business interfering, especially since she was just nitpicking for the sake of making trouble. But Maya argued that as the project's biggest financial backer, if she couldn't even voice her opinion, then maybe she should just pull her funding. We were both incredibly stubborn, neither of us willing to give an inch. The staff and our advisors were caught in the middle, trying to mediate between us. Finally, I was the one who suggested she participate directly in the research. I figured she'd only back off after seeing how things really worked. During that period, I intentionally made things difficult for her, assigning her all the most tedious, menial tasks. I thought the pampered rich girl would quit in a week, but to my surprise, she stuck it out to the very end. That's when my opinion of her completely changed. And after that, she stopped interfering with the research, no longer obsessed with her impossible standards. From then on, we started to see each other in a new light, and our relationship naturally grew from there. Maya later told me she'd recognized me the moment she saw me, from that competition back in college. I held her in my arms and asked if it was love at first sight, if she'd been carrying a torch for me all that time. She didn't say anything, just looked at me with the softest expression and nodded gently. "Yes." Snapping back to the present, I looked at her beautiful face on my screen and smiled. "You're right, I hold a grudge. You'd better watch out." She gave me that same adoring look she always had. "Okay, please, Ethan, never let me off the hook." By the time I got home from my old school, it was already dark. I opened the door to the warm, delicious smell of a home-cooked meal and saw the dining table laden with food. My mother poked her head out of the kitchen. "You're back. Come see if my cooking has gotten rusty." I slipped on my house shoes and went into the kitchen. "Impossible. Your cooking is the best in the world." My mother laughed. "You're just a smooth talker." Soon after, Just as we were setting the table, my father got home. For the first time in a long time, our family was all together, sharing a meal. After 2 days of settling in at home, I reported for my new position at the National Research Institute. It was the same kind of academic work I'd been doing in Australia, so I got up to speed quickly. The institute was short-staffed, so even though I'd only been there a week, they already had me handling high-priority projects. It started to drizzle on that overcast afternoon, the fine rain streaking the window panes and blurring the cityscape outside. I powered through every urgent task in my inbox, working so intensely that I completely forgot about lunch. I had just leaned back in my chair when a colleague, David, walked in with a stack of freshly printed, still warm documents. "Ethan, meeting in the small conference room at 3. I took a sip of my now cold latte. "What's it about?" "New investor. Management assigned them to our team. We also have to present the results from 2 experiments and join a video conference with the team in California." After listing the insane workload, he asked timidly, "Maybe we could ask another team to handle the experiment presentation?" I took it all on. "No, we've been handling that project from the start. Just leave the files here." I was used to a heavy workload. This was nothing new. I arrived at the conference room 5 minutes early, shifting into my professional, serious mindset as I pushed open the door. I was surprised to find that everyone was already there. My boss, my colleagues, the sponsors, and sitting at the head of the long table looking cool and elegant was Chloe. I made a mental note that I'd have to be more prepared before walking through doors from now on. On that rainy afternoon, they listened as I methodically laid out the project's core concepts. My voice was low and steady, my hair was neat, my shirt was perfectly pressed, and my sleeves were rolled up to my forearms. The meeting concluded on a positive note. My boss shook hands with the investor's representative, then glanced at me expectantly. "Ethan." I snapped out of my thoughts and saw Chloe's hand extended towards me. I looked up and met her sly, knowing gaze. I felt like I was facing a wolf, one whose tail was wagging in triumph behind her back. This was a trap, a setup, but with my boss and the entire team watching, I had no choice. I steeled myself and shook her hand. "A pleasure to be working with you." She flashed a devastatingly charming smile, and I struggled to keep my own expression neutral. "The pleasure is all mine." After the meeting, I had to escort our new sponsor to the lobby. When I got back to my office, I grimly opened my phone and unblocked her number. I immediately typed out a furious text. "Chloe, did you orchestrate this entire thing just to get me to unblock you?" I gritted my teeth, but then I paused. Accusing her now would just make me look foolish. The contract was already signed. I deleted the angry message and replaced it with something more professional. "Ms. Vance, this is Ethan Peterson, the project lead. Please feel free to contact me with any questions or concerns moving forward." "Okay," came the clipped, impersonal reply. I downed the rest of my cold latte, trying to swallow my irritation along with it. I had assumed that once the project kicked off, I'd have to interact with Chloe constantly. But she delegated all communication to her subordinates, avoiding me completely. It was for the best. As long as I didn't have to deal with her directly, I was fine. I put a few drops in my dry eyes and forced myself to focus on my work. I was staring at the screen so long I started seeing spots. When I finally looked up, I saw a woman standing in my doorway who looked like a model. A second glance confirmed it was Chloe. She knocked on the doorframe with her knuckles. "Workaholic." The familiar, affectionate greeting caught me off guard after days of keeping my distance. "When did you get here?" "About 10 minutes ago. I texted you, but you didn't answer." "Sorry," I said, glancing at my phone. "I have your notifications silenced, so I didn't see it." "No problem." A smile played on her lips. "Are you free tonight?" "No," I said almost automatically. "As far as I know, your boss hasn't scheduled any work dinners for you tonight, and it's well past 5. If you're determined to work for free, you might as well do it over a nice dinner with me." After she delivered that flawless little speech, I sighed in defeat. I was completely transparent to her. "Is this business or personal?" "Business. I want to introduce you to some of the key people on our side. It'll make things smoother down the line." I couldn't find a reason to refuse. And besides, I was actually starving. Once in her Bentley, I fastened my seatbelt and closed my eyes, hoping to avoid conversation. Seeing the exhaustion on my face, Chloe turned off the music and drove a little slower, giving me a chance to rest. If I had opened my eyes at a red light, I would have seen the undisguised concern in her eyes, as clear as moonlight. I may have looked drained in the car, but by the time we got to the restaurant, I had switched into work mode, becoming the same confident professional I was at the gala. I'm not a naturally social person, but for the sake of the Institute's funding, I put on my best face, joining in on what was essentially another company's team-building event, making toasts and laughing with everyone. it was much more relaxed than a formal dinner. By the end, I was pleasantly buzzed and had exchanged contact info with everyone important. As we all filed out of the restaurant, people started talking about heading to a nearby bar for an after-party. I had accomplished what I needed to for the night and had no intention of joining them. Chloe didn't seem interested in going either. After the others had left, she turned to me with a smile. "Want to take a walk by the river?" I put my guard back up. "Is this business or personal?" She dangled a suggestive line. "Let's call it semi-professional." I'd never dealt with a client like this before. She was so smooth, I couldn't call her out on it without looking like a jerk, and I had no real reason to say no. I could only nod in agreement. We walked side by side along the riverfront, again in silence. It was as if her overly familiar workaholic comment back at my office had been a figment of my imagination. She stopped in front of a bridge I didn't recognize. When she finally spoke, her voice seemed to carry on the wind, full of a deep sadness. "Ethan, I came to Australia to find you." I was taken aback. "And?" I asked. She pressed her lips together before continuing. "I saw you kissing another woman. She looked a little like me." "Ethan, you do still love me, don't you?" I frowned. I never thought Maya looked anything like her. "I'm sorry, Ms. Vance," I said, using her formal title to create distance. "I believe our work for the day has concluded. I should be getting home." With that, I turned and walked away, quickly disappearing from her sight. The wristwatch clattered loudly as it hit the hardwood floor. "I'm so sorry, Ms. Vance," one of the movers said, quickly picking it up and bowing deeply. "It looks like it's broken. We'll cover the full cost of the repairs, of course." Chloe took the watch back, examining the cracked crystal under the light. "It's not your fault," she said softly. "This watch hasn't worked in years." After the movers left, she began to unpack by herself, making the bed, mopping the floors, and opening the windows to let in the fresh air. She had decided to move the day she found out I was working at the institute. From the south-facing terrace of this new apartment, she could just see the residential building where I lived. Lying alone in a rocking chair on the terrace, listening to the rustle of the leaves, she remembered the day her watch had stopped. In the second year of my absence, she finally got a lead on where I was. Without a moment's hesitation, she booked a ticket, taking a grueling red-eye flight all the way to Australia. When she'd first learned I was gone, Chloe had asked everyone we knew where I'd gone. But I hadn't told anyone, and my parents, the only ones who knew, refused to even speak with her. It was only after visiting my old university professor several times that she happened to see a souvenir I'd sent on the professor's desk, and finally figured it out. The entire flight, she was filled with a nervous, hopeful energy. She wore the watch I had given her, mentally rehearsing over and over how she would apologize, how she would win me back. She was determined that this time, she would make things right between us. She went straight from the airport to the University of Queensland School of Biological Sciences, asking everyone she saw for directions. She finally found someone who knew me. "Oh, Ethan?" He said he had a stomachache and went to the campus health clinic. So Chloe rushed to the clinic, and there, in one of the rooms, she found me, asleep with an 4 in my arm. Seeing my face, pale as a sheet, my brow furrowed even in sleep, she felt a twisting pain in her heart, as if it were being wrung out. She found a nurse and asked, "Is my friend going to be okay?" "Chronic gastritis," the nurse replied, "probably from skipping meals and drinking too many iced beverages. His stomach is paying the price." The nurse removed the 4 and left the room. As the wind gently billowed the white curtains, Chloe leaned over me and softly cupped my face with her hand. My dry lips parted, and I murmured a name in my sleep. Chloe leaned in closer to hear. The name I whispered was Maya. Not Chloe, Maya. Her feelings shifted from longing to confusion, then to a burning, bitter jealousy. She stiffly pulled her hand back. As she turned, she saw another young woman standing in the doorway, watching her with a wary expression. "Who are you?" the woman asked. "And what are you doing here?" Chloe's heart clenched with pain. She knew instantly that this must be Maya. She was speechless, unable to answer. Who was she to me now? An ex-girlfriend? A childhood friend? My first love? While Chloe stood there, frozen, Maya walked past her, assertively positioning herself between Chloe and my bed. Then, she gently adjusted my blanket, tucking it in around me. Watching the familiar, caring gesture, Chloe remained silent. Maya's scrutinizing gaze was fixed on her. "Let's talk outside," she said firmly. "Don't disturb his rest." This time, Chloe finally found her voice. "There's no need." She spoke in Mandarin, and without waiting to see if Maya understood, she turned and fled. Chloe ran all the way back to her hotel and sat alone in her room for the rest of the night. But despite everything, she still wanted to explain, still wanted a chance to win me back. So the next day, she returned to the clinic, but I was already gone. The nurse told her I had been discharged the previous evening. After leaving the clinic, Chloe didn't ask for help. She just wandered aimlessly through the vast university campus, searching. She looked at the place where I had spent the last 2 years and tried to imagine my life there. Was I happy? Was I outgoing or quiet? Did I ever get homesick? Lost in these thoughts, she walked a full circuit of the campus. As dusk began to fall, by the shore of a small, unnamed lake, she finally found me. And Maya was with me. She watched as the girl stood on her tiptoes and kissed the boy she loved. The scene was painfully beautiful. Chloe clenched her fists, but she couldn't bring herself to interrupt. The moment she turned to leave, she was hit by an oncoming bicycle. That was when her watch broke. It was just a scrape, but the pain brought tears to her eyes. The cyclist was a young student who stood over her, apologizing profusely, completely flustered. Chloe hung her head, the sunset illuminating the raw grief on her face. She had a desperate need to voice her pain, not caring who was listening or if they understood. "I thought he would never leave me," she sobbed. "I thought we'd always be together, no matter what. I was wrong. I know I was wrong. I'm so sorry. Please don't leave me." Love was like a door. She had thought it was only temporarily closed, but when she tried to open it again, she found it had been locked from the inside. Hearing me call another woman's name, she finally understood that she was no longer the most important person in my life. To me, she was now just an empty shell from a past memory. Ignoring the student's confused stare, Chloe wiped her eyes, stood up, brushed herself off, and walked away. Ethan had a new life now. There was no place for her in it. The Chloe who returned from Australia was a different person. She threw herself into her work, becoming a relentless workaholic. It was the only way to keep from thinking about me and about Maya. The pain was too much to bear. She worked like a machine, transforming herself into a model of success among her peers. And just when she was starting to believe she could build a new life for herself, I reappeared. Suddenly, without any warning, I was right there in front of her again. I was within her reach. And so she reached out. She grabbed hold and refused to let go. All her carefully constructed walls came crumbling down. She couldn't lie to herself any longer. She still loved me and she wanted to be with me. This would be her last chance. She told herself just one last try. She would do everything in her power to win me back. She was prepared for me to avoid her, to say cruel things. She knew she deserved it. As long as she could earn my forgiveness, nothing else mattered. That's why she invested in my research institute, specifically requesting that my team be assigned to the project. Afraid of pushing me away, she waited patiently until she had a legitimate reason to approach me. I had returned alone. This was her final opportunity. She slept reasonably well on her first night in the new apartment. She woke up 2 minutes before her alarm, quickly washed her face, changed into her running clothes, and headed out the door. The mild temperature was perfect for a morning jog. Her fitness tracker set the pace while her headphones played a public playlist I had created on Spotify. It felt a bit like stalking, but she often used a private account to keep up with my social media. She ran 2 laps around the neighborhood, working up a light sweat, before stopping at a small, steaming breakfast diner. "I'll have an order of dumplings," she told the owner. Then, looking at the handwritten menu on the wall, she added, "and a bowl of your house special oatmeal, for here." The owner could tell she wasn't from the neighborhood and enthusiastically recommended his specials. "You have to try our fresh donuts and crullers. They're the best in the city, super crispy." Chloe was easily persuaded. "Okay, I'll take one of each." She paid with her phone and found a seat inside. She ended up with a table full of food, and after sampling a bit of everything, she realized she just wasn't used to this kind of food anymore. It made her miss her family's cook. Determined not to waste food, she kept eating, wondering if she should just go home for lunch, when she heard a familiar, clear voice. "2 plain bagels and a coffee to go." Her eyes darted towards the counter, and through the steam rising from the coffee machine, she saw my blurry outline. I hadn't seen her. I grabbed my breakfast and left. By the time Chloe quickly finished her food and ran outside, all she saw was my car pulling away from the curb. I had already settled back into my life here. Summer was setting in, and the 8 a.m. sun was already bright. Chloe went back to her apartment, showered, and got dressed for work. She was now in complete control of her family's corporation, the one person whose voice held the most authority. At lunch, she met with some senior figures in her industry, gathering intel. In the afternoon, she had a meeting scheduled at the Research Institute. My Research Institute, their 2 companies were collaborating on a major, multi-year research project. As the primary client, Chloe had the right to visit the institute and check on the project's progress at any time. She also had a standing weekly meeting with my team every Wednesday. The leather chairs in the conference room were comfortable. She sipped her coffee, sweet and creamy, as she listened to our team present a very satisfactory proposal. She would interject with a question now and then, her eyes fixed on me as I spoke, her gaze brushing over my lips like a feather. So, in summary, we've drafted two potential approaches. Plan A prioritizes return on investment, while Plan B sacrifices some short-term profit to focus on building long-term brand reputation. Ms. Vance, what are your initial thoughts? Both proposals are strong, Chloe said, closing the binder. I'll take them both back to my executive team for a final decision. My voice was flat and professional. Of course, please let us know if you have any questions. My colleagues filed out of the room, leaving the two of us alone. I looked down, tidying my papers, while Chloe sat across from me, staring. I frowned, uncomfortable under her gaze. Was there something else, Ms. Vance? If not, I really need to get back to work. She laughed, her lips parting in a small smile. Does asking you to dinner count as something else? I pretended I hadn't heard her, grabbed my files, and practically ran from the conference room back to my office. But Chloe wasn't one to give up easily. She was right behind me, and just as I was about to shut my office door, she stuck her hand out to block it and slipped inside. Can I help you with something? I asked, my tone deliberately cold. Chloe just smiled. Nope, just thought I'd hang out for a bit. She casually sat down in the chair across from my desk. I ignored her and tried to focus on my work, the steady click of my mouse the only thing keeping me grounded. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw her shift in her chair. So, she said, leaning forward and resting her chin in her hand, which plan do you think the old board members will go for? Since she was talking business, my mind automatically began to analyze the possibilities. Based on my experience dealing with boards like theirs, they prioritize public perception and brand image above all else. They'll probably choose Plan B. As I said it, her smile widened, and I had a sudden, sinking feeling. I think they'll choose Plan A, she said, her voice full of confident provocation. Wanna bet? I was equally confident in my own assessment, and honestly, I wanted nothing more than to knock her down a peg. Bet what? I challenged, lifting my chin. She narrowed her eyes playfully. Well, she purred, drawing out the word. If you lose, you have to take me to dinner. If I lose, I'll grant you one wish. Anything within my power. It sounded like a childish dare. I scoffed but agreed. You're on. With that, she left my office. A few moments later, I heard someone calling my name from the main workspace. Ethan, come get some coffee. Coming. Hey Ethan, Ms. Vance bought coffee for the whole team. This one's special, just for you. I pressed my lips together. I couldn't bring myself to feel pleased about it. My boss saw Chloe as a major asset and had forged a deep, long-term partnership with her company, even setting aside a dedicated office space for her team at our institute. In reality, her people rarely used it, since their own corporate headquarters was just a few blocks away. Chloe herself was incredibly busy, only showing up in our department occasionally to buy everyone coffee or for an official meeting. But every Wednesday afternoon, without fail, the entire team would be buzzing with an energy usually reserved for recent college grads on their first day of work. The women on my team would wear full makeup and their sharpest business attire. The men, who usually procrastinated, would have their reports in my inbox hours ahead of schedule. Even our messiest coder would tidy his desk. Once, my boss put his hands on his hips and pretended to be annoyed. Really, guys? It's just Ms. Vance. You should all be more like Ethan. He treats every meeting the same. It's not the same, one of them retorted. Ethan's a catch himself. He doesn't need to impress anyone. But for the rest of us, Ms. Vance is the most eligible person we're ever going to meet in this lab. We have to shoot our shot. Another one joked, yeah, Ethan, stay out of it. Don't ruin this for us. I was just walking past with my coffee and heard the whole exchange, and I couldn't help but smile to myself. I didn't know what kind of person Chloe was now, but the Chloe I used to know was not someone worth falling in love with. Still, I could understand how they felt. I had been just like them once. It's like that line from The Little Prince. If you tell me you're coming at 4 o'clock, I'll be happy from 3 o'clock. I had to admit, Chloe had a captivating charm, then and now. Not that it mattered to me anymore. It was another one of those evenings where I was completely swamped with work. Another team had meddled in our experiment reporting, and when they made a mistake, they tried to blame it on one of my junior researchers. I spent the entire day running around, fixing their mess and clearing my team member's name. By the time it was all over, I was so exhausted I just collapsed onto my desk. There was a soft knock on my door. I sat up and saw Chloe walking towards me, her expression just as gentle as I remembered it from 5 years ago. For a second, I felt a strange sense of déjà vu. You look like you forgot to eat again, she said, placing an insulated container on my desk. I heard from one of your colleagues that the team lead next door was giving you a hard time. I silently cursed my gossipy colleagues, my voice flat as I replied, "It was nothing, it's handled." I glanced at the clock on my computer screen. It was 8 p.m. "Why are you here so late?" "To bring you dinner, of course. Though it looks like I'm a little late." She carefully opened the container, and the steam that rose up seemed to cloud my vision for a moment. "Don't tell me your family's cook made all this." Chloe just smiled and gestured for me to eat. I couldn't refuse. The smell was exactly the kind of home-cooked meal I'd been craving, and I was absolutely famished. I dug in, and after just a few bites, my eyes started to sting. I don't know where the Fiancée found their cook, but her food was always exactly what I loved. The taste brought back a flood of memories. "You didn't have to come all this way just to bring me food," I said. She answered without missing a beat. "You have a sensitive stomach and you skip meals. What happens to my investment if you get sick? We're tied together on this project, Ethan." Another excuse I couldn't argue with. I didn't respond. She watched me eat, her voice soft. "I'm leaving for London tomorrow for a week. You need to eat on time, cut back on the iced coffee, and take care of yourself." I wanted to snap at her, to tell her not to talk to me like my mother, but it's hard to argue when you're eating someone's food. I swallowed my retort along with the rice. She waited until I had finished, then took the empty container and said, as if it were the most natural thing in the world, "Okay, I'm going. Don't stay too late." It felt so natural, as if that was exactly what she was supposed to say. Time is a strange and powerful thing. All those years together had woven us into each other's lives, making her care and presence a familiar habit. Even with 5 years of silence between us, the moment we were back in each other's orbits, she slipped right back into that old role, and I found myself passively accepting it. I watched her leave, then sat at my desk, speechless. This couldn't continue. I was sure of my feelings, but letting myself get used to her again would be like willingly walking back into a trap. Thankfully, Maya was coming back in a week. A week later, I was still swamped at work. I had to apologize to Maya over and over, telling her I wouldn't be able to pick her up from the airport. She just laughed and said it was fine. I knew she hated hotels, so I sent her the address and key code to my apartment, the one provided by the Institute, and told her to make herself at home and get some rest. With that settled, I dove back into my work. The next thing I knew, it was 7 in the evening. I dragged my exhausted body home, unlocked the door, and was immediately greeted by the warm, delicious smell of food. The dining table was covered with takeout containers, and Maya was standing in the open-plan kitchen. She looked up as I came in. Perfect timing. "The pasta is just ready." My heart melted. We'd been apart for a month, but there was no grand, emotional reunion, no dramatic declarations. Just that simple, normal sentence. It was enough to make my eyes well up. Her tone, her expression. For a second, it felt as if we'd never been apart at all. I even saw some of her clothes hanging to dry on the balcony. I walked up behind her and wrapped my arms around her. "What's wrong?" she asked. I rested my chin on top of her head and whispered, "I missed you." She soothed me with a warm voice. "I'm sorry I'm late." We stayed like that for a moment before she sent me to the living room to wait. A few minutes later, she placed a bowl of pasta in front of me. Simple, with a few greens and a poached egg on top. I knew this was the absolute peak of her culinary ability. I'd barely eaten lunch, and now even this incredibly simple bowl of pasta looked like the most delicious thing in the world. I twirled the pasta with my fork, took a few bites, then glanced at Maya, who was watching me intently. "Didn't you get any sleep after a flight that long?" "I took a nap," she said. "It was enough." I really was starving, so I focused on eating, not having the energy for conversation. I barely touched the takeout, but I finished every last bit of the pasta. I felt a wave of exhaustion hit me as soon as I was done. I hadn't been sleeping well all week. "I'm just going to close my eyes for a minute," I mumbled. "So tired." Maya thoughtfully brought a pillow and a light blanket from the bedroom, her hand gently touching my forehead. "Get some rest." As I lay down on the sofa, I could smell the warm, sun-dried scent of the pillow. Maya had grown up privileged, catered to her whole life, yet since we'd been together, she had taken it upon herself to take care of me. She had just gotten off a long-haul flight, and the first thing she did was cook for me and look after me. I felt a pang of guilt. Lying there, listening to the clatter of dishes from the kitchen, my consciousness slowly faded, like milk being poured into coffee. Just as she was finishing up, I managed to whisper, "Thank you." She laughed softly, a helpless tone in her voice. "You don't have to thank me." Her gentle laughter was the last thing I heard before I drifted off to sleep. Meanwhile, Chloe, on her business trip in London, quickly finalized her deal with the investors. She remembered seeing me post about a limited edition guitar I'd been wanting for ages, and she made a special trip to a vintage shop to find it for me. She didn't even bother to adjust to the time difference. She landed, slept for 3 hours, and then went straight to my apartment the next morning, guitar in hand, eagerly anticipating the look on my face when I saw it. She rang the doorbell, a wide smile on her face, but the smile vanished the moment the door opened. The person who answered the door was Maya, wrapped in a bath towel. She looked Chloe up and down. "Can I help you?" Chloe was completely taken aback by the question. Maybe it was because it was Maya asking, her gaze just as scrutinizing as it had been 3 years prior, but Chloe found herself suppressing a wave of bitterness as she seriously considered the question. What was she to me now? A former best friend? An ex-girlfriend? My first love? A business associate? "I'm a friend of Ethan's," she finally said, choosing the simplest, most neutral term from the confusing list. "Is he home?" Maya didn't move from the doorway. "He's out right now. May I come in and wait for him?" Chloe asked, forcing a polite smile, though a subtle hostility simmered just beneath the surface. Maya hesitated for a second, then stepped aside to let her in. She watched as Chloe put on the guest slippers by the door, and then even graciously offered her a glass of water. Chloe thanked her with a smile and sat down on the sofa with the guitar case. She took a quick look around my apartment. It was neat, minimalist, and orderly. It looked like the home of someone who lived alone. But then again, Maya had just arrived. Her things probably weren't even unpacked yet. Chloe hadn't considered that, and a small flicker of hope ignited within her. She turned her attention to Maya, who was now drying her hair with a towel. "When did you get back?" Maya shot her a sideways glance. "You know who I am?" "Of course," Chloe thought to herself. "Not only do I know you, I saw you kiss him. I'll never forget it." But out loud, she just said vaguely, "Ethan mentioned you." It was a clever answer, making it sound like she was just a casual friend. As she'd hoped, Maya seemed to relax slightly, though her intuition still told her something was off about this woman. Just then, the electronic lock beeped and the door swung open. I walked in carrying a bag of breakfast and stopped short, surprised to see Chloe sitting on my sofa so early in the morning. I then glanced over at Maya, who was in the middle of blow-drying her hair. After a moment of tense, unspoken thoughts passing between the three of us, I was the one to break the silence, speaking to Chloe. "This is my girlfriend, Maya," I said, gesturing to her. "She was in Australia with me. She just got back." Chloe had prepared herself for this, and she kept her expression pleasant. Maya walked over, gave me a quick kiss on the cheek, and said softly, "I'll let you two talk. I'm just going to go get changed." "Okay," I replied. With just the two of us left, the tension in the room eased slightly. I sat down on the other end of the sofa from her. "Have you eaten?" "Not yet. I bought extra, you can have some." Chloe glanced at the greasy donuts and crullers in the bag, just as Maya, now in a t-shirt and shorts, walked back into the room. "Never mind," she said, forcing a smile. "I'm not really used to this kind of food." I didn't press her, just gave a slight nod and started unpacking the food. Before the silence could settle again, Chloe stood up and placed the guitar case by my side. "It's for you." I refused immediately. "Thank you, but I can't accept it." As she walked towards the door, she said over her shoulder, "Then throw it away." The door opened and then clicked softly shut. Her voice had been even quieter than the sound of the latch, and I could feel the sadness in it. I looked inside the case and saw it, the limited edition Fender I had wanted for years. I was silent for a long time. I still had to give it back. Maya came over and took a bite of a cruller. "Do you like the guitar?" I pressed my lips together. "I used to. A long time ago. So long ago I'd almost forgotten about it." Maya didn't say anything, so I spoke first. "Aren't you going to ask who she is?" "She said she was your friend," she replied, simply repeating Chloe's own words. I looked down and told her the truth, that she was my ex-girlfriend, the girl I grew up with, my first love. Looking at me then, Maya seemed to see a ghost of the man I was when I first arrived in Australia 5 years ago. A meticulous scientist by day, and the wild lead singer of a rock band by night. Two complete extremes. Maya had discovered my secret life by accident. Looking back, she realized now it must have all been because of Chloe. The bar was tucked away down a narrow alley, the kind you had to park and walk down. The brick walls were damp with moss, and trendy young people were always gathered outside, smoking and talking. Maya had pushed her way through the noise and clouds of smoke to get to the stage area. She'd gone to the bar to order a soda, and in that short time at least 5 different guys had tried to hit on her. She tried to put on a stern, unapproachable face, but found that it only seemed to attract more attention. Then the band took the stage, and the show kicked off with a thunderous drum solo. The crowd went wild, cheering and pumping their fists in the air as crimson and blue lights bathed the room, turning it into some kind of chaotic musical experiment. The stage itself was tiny and kind of grimy, a definite step down from the one at her high school talent show. The fans in the front were packed in so tightly it looked like they might spill onto the stage at any moment. Maya didn't join the crush. She stood back by the stairs, nursing her drink, her eyes fixed on the stage just a few yards away. The lead singer's voice was like a sunset, like a cool breeze, filling the room with a soft, warm sound. Maya stared at me on the stage, a smile unconsciously spreading across her face. It was the first time she had ever seen me in the spotlight, and she thought the light radiating from me was far brighter than any of the stage lights. This tiny stage, she thought, was completely unworthy of his talent. When the chorus hit, she found herself singing along softly, lost in the music just like everyone else. This was a different Ethan, an Ethan that only she knew. The show was a huge, unexpected success. When it ended, the entire venue was chanting for an encore. While the other band members posed for photos with fans, I had already slipped quietly backstage. I didn't want the attention. I was trying to keep this part of my life separate. As Maya realized this, she followed me behind the curtain. The moment I saw her there, my face was a mixture of shock and panic. Maya spoke first. "I followed you. Don't worry, I just wanted to see what you were up to. I won't tell anyone, I promise." Something in her sincere tone made me relax my guard, though I still didn't speak. We stood there in a silent standoff for a moment before I heard the other guys in the band calling for me. Maya followed close behind me. As we passed the stairs, the band's drummer, a girl named Jess, blocked Maya's path. Her expression was openly contemptuous, and as she pushed past, she deliberately slammed her shoulder into Maya's. Maya didn't react, just kept following me, but she could feel the other girl's eyes on her back. "You like Ethan?" Jess's voice suddenly cut through the noise. Maya turned to face the drummer, saying nothing, just meeting her gaze with a calm, steady stare. Her silence clearly infuriated the other girl. Jess let out a derisive laugh, snapping her gum. "I asked you a question. Do you like him, or do you just want to sleep with him?" It took all of Maya's self-control not to slap her. Instead, a small, challenging smile played on her lips. "You like him, don't you? And you're afraid you can't compete." It was as if a silent declaration of war had just been made. Later, when a few of them went out to the dance floor, the silent competition continued. Maya brought me a slice of watermelon. Jess immediately countered with an entire fruit platter. When Maya came back from the bar with a juice, she saw Jess had taken the opportunity to slide in next to me. In the flashing lights, the woman had her arm wrapped tightly around my waist, whispering in my ear. Whatever she said made me laugh, and I leaned my head against her shoulder, my eyes crinkling at the corners. That girl was infuriating. Maya took a long drink of her orange juice, and it tasted like pure vinegar. The others were still engrossed in some drinking game. Seeing that I was sitting out around and Jess had gone to the restroom, Maya quickly slid in next to me. "Are you bored?" she whispered. "A little," I admitted. "Then let's run away together." The next thing I knew, we were holding hands and running out of the bar. She put the top down on her convertible, and we sped out of the city, driving fast down an open highway. The warm, humid night air whipped through our hair as the bright lights of the city disappeared behind us. We connected my phone to the car's speakers and blasted our favorite songs. I cupped my hands around my mouth and yelled into the wind like a little kid. Maya kept her eyes on the road, but she was smiling at me, finding my moment of insanity completely endearing. She pulled the car over at a scenic overlook, where the stars were bright in the dark sky. "Feel better?" she asked. I nodded. That was amazing. 20 minutes ago, we were in a loud, crowded bar playing stupid games with strangers. Now, we were under a sky full of stars, feeling our hearts pound in our chests. I rubbed my tired eyes. "How come you didn't ask me why I sing at a dive bar like that?" Her lovely voice was carried on the breeze. "I'm not going to ask. I want you to tell me when you're ready." The gentle night wind seemed to stir something inside me. I looked down, feeling a little flustered. There's just a lot of pressure, a lot of things on my mind. Singing helps me let it go. The sound of the wind in the trees and the chirping of crickets created a peaceful symphony. In that comfortable silence, the space between our shoulders slowly disappeared until our heads were resting gently against each other. I turned my head slightly, and our lips were just inches apart. But Maya just averted her eyes, her voice a little husky. "It's getting late. We should head back. But from now on, whenever you want to sing, you call me, and I'll be there." And she came to every single one of my shows after that. Once we officially got together, she took on my burdens as her own, and I never needed to sing in that bar again. As the memory faded, Maya gently touched my cheek. I understand. But I took her hand and held it tight. That whole time, singing in the bar, that was because of her too. I told her the whole story, from the day I met Chloe as a child, to how I slowly fell completely in love with her. I told her how Chloe had cut me off for a year, the year I loved her most, and how I found out she was cheating on me. I laid bare the deepest parts of my heart for her, not for pity, but to show her how much her own love and kindness meant to me, and that I would never betray that. When I finished, Maya was silent for a long time. Then she just pulled me into a tight embrace. I didn't press her for words. I just buried my face in her shoulder. I had never wanted to give my heart away again. The pain of loving someone with everything you have, only to end up with nothing, was something I only needed to experience once. But Maya was just too good. Every step she took towards me was so sure, so unwavering. She loved me so completely, and I hadn't lost my capacity to love. I couldn't help but fall for her. Thankfully, I knew this time would be different. Maya would never hurt me. That evening, my phone buzzed with a notification. I opened it. It was a text from Chloe, with a long screenshot attached. Looks like we have a winner. I stared at the image, which showed that Plan A had been chosen by an overwhelming majority. I was lost in thought. I couldn't believe my judgment had been so wrong. The next day, as I stepped out of the elevator at work, I ran into one of the admins from my department. He was beaming as he walked towards me, and I knew instantly that Chloe must be here. "Ethan, Ms. Vance brought cake for everyone. Come get a slice." "No thanks," I said. "You guys enjoy." I declined his offer, eyeing the spread of pastries and coffees on the break room table. It felt like a fox bringing gifts to the henhouse. I went straight to my office and shut the door. She was sitting in my chair, playing Minesweeper on my computer. "Where have you been? I've been waiting forever." It was just like old times. "Did you recommend Plan A to your board?" I asked, getting straight to the point. "Of course not," she said, her voice and expression the picture of innocence. "That would be cheating." I was sure she had cheated to win the bet, but I had no proof. A bet was a bet. I reluctantly conceded. "You win. So, when do you want to have that dinner?" She closed the game, swiveled my chair around to face me, and met my gaze. "Now." I stared at her, surprised. "Now? It's barely 9 in the morning." An awkward, in-between time, but she nodded firmly. "Right now. Come on, I already cleared it with your boss." I had no choice but to follow her to a quiet, traditional tea house. Drinking tea this early in the morning felt absurd. I looked at her sitting across from me, a headache starting to form. "If you have something you want to say, just say it." I still knew her too well. I could tell something was on her mind. She took a sip of her tea. "Do you love her?" I answered without a moment's hesitation. "Yes." It wasn't the answer itself that hit her the hardest. It was the conviction in my voice. She took another sip of tea, as if to wash down a bitter taste. "So there's really no chance for us?" I nodded. "That's right. I love her, and I have no intention of ever leaving her. In fact, as soon as work settles down, I'm planning on taking her home to meet my parents." I could see the pain in her eyes, as if my words were physically squeezing the air from her lungs. If I had never gotten involved with Leo, would you still love me?" I paused for a long moment. "I don't know." The steam from my cup blurred my vision. I blinked, and as my eyes refocused, I could see the silent tears streaming down her face. And in that moment, I felt a pang of sadness for her, too. She had made her choices, and that's what had led us here. But if she hadn't, would we have made it? I didn't know. I honestly didn't know, and I could never promise that we would have. Maybe time really does change things. I couldn't tell if I had never loved her as much as I thought, or if the years apart had simply washed those feelings away. That's why I couldn't give her an answer. But it didn't matter anymore. "Just move on, Chloe," I said finally. "Find someone and treat them right. Build a life with them." After that, she disappeared from my life. And this time, I didn't feel the loss, and I certainly didn't go looking for her. The next day was a sunny Saturday. I had finally cleared my desk of all the urgent projects the day before and was planning a proper date with Maya. Unfortunately, I woke up that morning with a fever. In the morning, with a cooling patch stuck to my forehead, I peeked around the kitchen doorway like a little kid. "What are you doing?" Maya held up a pear. "Making you some poached pears with honey." "Do you even know how?" The question was barely out of my mouth before she was gently shooing me out of the kitchen, placing a plate of sliced pears on the coffee table for me. With a practiced efficiency I'd never seen before, she then turned back to the counter and started prepping other ingredients. I sat cross-legged on the sofa, munching on a slice of pear. "Well, I said slowly. "Pigs must be flying. You're actually cooking." Her calm voice drifted out from the kitchen. "You can always learn new things." I pulled the light summer blanket tighter around my shoulders. The cool, Sweet pear soothed my sore throat. Watching her focused figure in the kitchen was a beautiful sight, and I couldn't take my eyes off her. We had been together for a while now, and her combination of inner calm and driven ambition was absolutely captivating to me. I thought to myself that if, for some reason, we didn't end up together, whoever did would be the luckiest person in the world. My tendency to overthink got the better of me, and the thought sent a pang of sadness through my chest. I walked into the kitchen and wrapped my arms around her from behind, my voice barely a whisper. Promise you'll never leave me. I knew I was being irrational, even a little manipulative, but the thought was out there, and I couldn't take it back. Are you hungry? She asked, not having heard me clearly. She turned, her voice warm. I've only finished one dish so far. Can you wait a little longer? It's nothing, just came to see what's on the menu, I said, letting go and trying to look casual. When did you learn to cook all this? She gave a wry smile. Right now. I read online that you can't taste much when you're sick, so I figured you'd be the perfect guinea pig. With that, she leaned in and gave me a natural, easy kiss. Go wait in the living room. It's a mess in here. My heart fluttered. It felt like I was in a beautiful dream I never wanted to wake from. Please, I prayed silently, just let me stay in this dream a little longer. By the time the weekend was over, my fever was gone. The overall project plan was finalized. Now it was just a matter of execution. It was too early to celebrate the final victory, but this milestone was worth acknowledging. The Vance Corporation's leadership organized a weekend retreat for the team at a lakeside resort, and they invited my entire team and our families to join. The retreat was very relaxed. Aside from a group barbecue at noon, everyone was free to do their own thing. When I arrived hand in hand with Maya, we immediately drew a lot of stares. So that's why you're not interested in anyone at the office, one of my colleagues teased. You've been hiding the good one at home, another chimed in. Why'd you keep her a secret for so long? I could feel myself blushing, but Maya just squeezed my hand and said smoothly, that's my fault. I've only just gotten back to the country. I'll be sure to treat you all to dinner soon to make up for it. Amid the cheers, the guys on my team dragged me off to a game of poker. After a few hands, I got bored, found someone to take my place, and slipped outside for some fresh air. I had no idea where the women had whisked Maya off to. The air by the lake was cool and crisp. A light breeze sent ripples across the water's glassy surface. The lush grass looked so soft it made you want to run your hands through it. And so I did, feeling the tension in my shoulders ease. So, which is better, the grass here or the grass in Australia? A familiar voice asked from behind me. I smiled without turning around. Australia, of course. Maya laughed and pulled me to my feet. Want to try the hot springs? I heard they're really nice here. I don't like public pools, I said, a bit of my old spoiled nature showing through. Then we'll go back to our room and use the private jacuzzi, she said with a grin. We haven't even had dinner yet, I protested. Fine, we'll go after dinner, she said, deliberately misunderstanding my objection. I turned my head away, my ears burning, pretending to be annoyed, and even though she knew I was faking, she still playfully tried to win me over. The bubble of happiness around us was so perfect, there was no room for anyone else. Just off the path, hidden behind a stone wall, Chloe watched us. Her face was blank, but a closer look would have revealed a deep sadness in her eyes. But stronger than the sadness was a sense of relief and a silent blessing. She was happy that I had found someone who loved me with her whole heart. She sincerely hoped I would always be this happy. Keep moving forward, Ethan, she thought. Don't look back. Neither of us should ever look back. The 6 a.m. sun was a perfect, glowing orb. My internal clock woke me before my alarm. I rolled over gently in the hotel bed and looked at the woman sleeping beside me. I finally understood what it meant to be woken up by the sight of pure beauty. We had been up half the night, and by all rights I should have been exhausted, but instead I felt surprisingly refreshed. I propped my head on my hand and just watched her sleep, listening to the sound of her steady breathing, admiring the way her long lashes rested against her cheek. A wave of pure happiness washed over me. My eyes lingered on her lips, and I couldn't resist leaning in to steal a soft, secret kiss in the morning light. Just as I started to pull away, her arms wrapped around me, holding me close. Her eyes were still closed as she murmured, "What time is it? Still early?" I whispered, stroking her hair. "Go back to sleep." Wake me at 7:30, she mumbled. "I have a morning meeting." She sleepily kissed my forehead, and her breathing soon deepened again. I held her close, feeling a sweetness that was almost overwhelming. I drifted back into a sweet, contented sleep. After that weekend, everyone at the Institute knew I had a girlfriend. I decided there was no reason to hide it anymore. Maya's work was based here now. We weren't going to be apart again. Maya and I fell right back into the honeymoon phase. No, it was even better than before. On weekends, we ran errands together. During the week, we both excelled at our jobs. And every second after work, we were inseparable, sharing every little detail of our days, and having all-night video calls whenever one of us had to travel. I started writing music again, not as an escape anymore, but purely for the joy of it. Whenever I came up with a new melody, Maya was the first person I'd share it with, weaving my love for her into the lyrics. She would remember the smallest things I mentioned offhand and would move heaven and earth to get them for me, only to hand them over with a casual air. Sometimes I missed her so much during the day that I would drive for half an hour just to see her for my lunch break, even if it meant another half-hour drive back. In the private lounge attached to her CEO's office, two figures were lost in a deep kiss. After nearly 10 minutes, Maya was the one to finally pull away, though she stole one last peck. "If we keep this up," she murmured against my lips, "our lunch is going to get cold." "I'm not done yet," I grumbled, leaving a playful bite mark on her shoulder before reluctantly letting her go. I pulled the small table over, opened our takeout containers, and started to eat. It was the middle of summer, but the lunch special still came with hot soup. I touched the side of the pumpkin soup bowl. "Ow, that's hot." Without a word, Maya took my bowl, blew on a spoonful of soup, and held it out to me. "Here, now it's not." She fed me the spoonful, and the sweet soup was the perfect temperature. I watched, a little stunned, as she patiently blew on each spoonful before giving it to me. "Maya," I said, a note of wonder in my voice, "you've really changed." She smiled, confused. "What do you mean, changed? You're not leaving until you explain." The tips of my ears went red. "That's not what I meant," cleared my throat. "It's just, you never used to be this attentive." She put down the spoon and reached out to pinch my cheek. "You're so ungrateful. I just didn't know how to cook before. But who was it that always stood up for you whenever you got in trouble?" Now that she mentioned it, I realized she was right. Maya had never been one for words. She showed her love through actions. If I hadn't been paying close attention, I would have missed so much. Luckily, the Maya I had now was good at both. When had she changed? The question lingered on the tip of my tongue, but I swallowed it down along with the last spoonful of soup. After we ate, she had an urgent file to review and told me to take a nap while she worked. I stretched out on the sofa, resting my head in her lap, careful not to put too much weight on her. My view was of her soft chin and her beautiful lips. It was like a scene out of a novel. She was completely absorbed in her work, and I felt a pang of protectiveness, wanting to ease her burden. The soft, rapid tapping of her keyboard was the only sound in the quiet room. I let my gaze rest on her collarbone. "Did I bother you?" I asked quietly, "just showing up like this?" "Never," she said, gently stroking my hair. "Having you here makes me feel calm." Her words instantly erased any doubt or insecurity. I took her free hand and laced my fingers through hers. I hoped we could stay like this forever. I was completely content. "Ethan, your girlfriend's here." My head snapped up, a huge smile already spreading across my face before I even saw her. My colleague clicked his tongue. "Just kidding, but look at that lovesick smile." I glared at him until he left. Then I glanced at my own reflection in my dark phone screen and saw that he was right. My expression was ridiculously soft. It was almost the end of the day, so I quickly wrapped up my work. As I looked down, I caught a faint, familiar scent from my clothes. We'd been up late the night before, and in my morning rush, I'd grabbed one of her white t-shirts to wear as an undershirt by mistake. I'd spent the whole day keeping my jacket zipped up so no one would notice. "That happy look is back on your face, Ethan. Your girl is here to pick you up." This time, he was telling the truth. I hurried outside just as she was pulling into a parking spot. She got out of the car, and even from across the parking lot, she was stunning. My heart was hammering in my chest, but I tried to look calm, fiddling with the hem of my shirt. Maya held out her hand to me. "Tired?" I wasn't, really, but hearing her ask, I pulled her into a tight hug and just said, "A little." "You've worked so hard," she said, taking my hand. "Let me take you out for a nice dinner." In that moment, I knew I would love her for the rest of my life. On a weekend when we were both finally free, Maya filled her car with gifts, ready to go with me to formally meet my parents. She was ready to take our relationship to the next level. She couldn't wait another second to be my wife. I knew, without a doubt, that our future would be bright and that we would love each other for the rest of our lives.